All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here and participating in the it is alternative housing meeting tonight, and to share your voices. And I've talked with several of you. My name is Lori Burkhart Frank. I am a meeting facilitator. I don't work for the county. I just come in and do facilitation. They expected to hear from a lot of folks, so we're glad to have you. I did talk to some of you that this is your very first time coming to a meeting, so thank you for doing this, and we'll try to make this clear and simple. So tonight, the goal of the meeting is to hear your perspectives, because Tyler Barrington, who's the Director of Housing, is going to give a short presentation on what he's working on. And it's step one. It's putting together an ordinance that reflects the thoughts of the community, all of you. And so tonight, we just want to hear what you have to say. And then there's several steps which you'll go through before it will ever see the supervisors. But we do have two of the supervisors here. So we have Supervisor Rob Tucker from District 2 in the back there, and Supervisor Lisa Swathart right over there. She's from District 3. Very interested in, again, hearing what you have to say. Tyler will give a short presentation just to give context. And then can you raise your hand? You don't have to commit, but if you're pretty sure you're going to comment tonight. Okay, good. And you could change your mind if somebody wants to comment who hasn't raised their hand, but it looks like 3 minutes will work. And if you hear somebody who says what you wanted to say, that's okay, because it's not about how many people say it, and you'll also have the opportunity to provide written comments to Tyler as he's drafting this ordinance. So we'll start with a short presentation by Tyler, and then we'll ask one person to come up at a time. You'll have 3 minutes to talk, and then we'll move on to the next person and continue on, and we will end the meeting. The plan is to end the meeting at 7 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Tyler.
Thank you, Lori. Good evening, everybody. I'm Tyler Barrington. I'm the principal planner and interim director of housing. So set the record straight. Principal planner is what I'm working on here. So first of all, like Lori said, thank you all for coming tonight. As many of you, I do recognize from the Tiny Homes on Wheels ordinance, which we updated last year. And with that, the board did direct us to look at, through both the 2024 and 2025 board workshop, directed the planning department as kind of the second phase to the Tiny Homes on Wheels ordinance, to look at the ability to potentially allow for other alternative housing on private property. As some of you are aware, the board did pass the Tiny Homes on Wheels ordinance in February of 2025, and then also passed what's called rural owner limited density built housing, which allows for a reduction in standards. And so those are a couple of the pro-housing ordinances that were passed where the board gave us further direction, and that's why we're here today. So the approach that we're looking at taking currently is to work with our different departments in the Community Development Agency, not just planning, but code compliance, environmental health, building, as well as our legal team, to look at updating our existing temporary occupancies and recreational vehicles ordinance. Today is the first of those onset of meetings. The board did give us direction on April 22nd to move forward with this work program. And today is the first opportunity for people to comment. I will note I've received around 40 written comments through email to date. So if you've submitted a comment in email, you don't have to reiterate all those comments. We do have received them that will be provided to our Planning Commission and to our board at a future date. Based on the comments we received today and through our outreach process, we also sent out a flyer today for people to provide comments. Staff will be working on developing an ordinance, and once that's ready to be released, will probably be around July, we're hoping. There'll be additional public meetings where you can come out and comment on the actual information that's provided within that ordinance. We do have a dedicated webpage, which I'll put up on the screen. It does allow you to sign up for notices of different meetings that are coming up and different press releases that we'll be doing as part of this project. And then we'll likely, once we have a final ordinance, we'll be going to our municipal advisory councils for a recommendation to the board and the planning commission, as well as to our planning commission, who will make a recommendation to our board. We've heard a lot of the stories throughout the Tiny Homes on Wheels ordinance about different people you know that have lived in RVs or are currently living in RVs. The purpose of our meeting tonight is to talk about, in shaping this ordinance, what type of zoning makes sense, what size properties, what are the setbacks. We understand that public health and safety are an important component to this project, and so we realize that fire safety is something we'll have to look at. We realize that septic disposal is something we have to look at. So those are things that are kind of innate and already ingrained in the county's ordinance that we're looking at as the first attempt towards updating this and creating a potential ordinance. There's nothing set in stone in terms of what the ordinance will look like and whether it'll go forward or not. I mean, it will go forward, but it'll be up to the decision makers, the planning commission, the board of supervisors to determine that this is something that we want for our county. You don't have to look at the details here, but this is posted on our webpage. It's just kind of an outline of the process that we're looking at that mentions some of the meetings, some of the internal workings that I'll go on as we're developing the ordinance based on the public comments that we receive. And then finally, here is the webpage for alternative housing where we're posting any types of public hearing notices. Here's how you can sign up, and then obviously you can send your comments in writing to me. And with that, really look forward to hearing from the public tonight and hearing your comments on the ordinance. We'll be taking notes. It's also being recorded so that we can pull the notes out later on. And with that, I can turn it over to Lori, and then we can get started.
So if we could have maybe 5 people at a time stand in line and come up to the front. There's a clock here that says the amount of time, 3 minutes, and then there's also a clock back there if anybody wants to check. And as the line dwindles, then you can get back in line. If you do hear people that make the same comment as you, it's not necessary because, as Tyler said, we're recording all your ideas. So go ahead and get started. If you could introduce yourself first.
Okay, yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Tom Durkin. I'm the director of the No Place to Go project. I have a couple of comments. Nevada County can mitigate the homeless housing crisis by making trailers and RVs legal, safe, and available without having to build anything or spend millions of dollars. Alternative housing lowers the risk of a homeless campfire burning the whole town down. We want to get people out of the woods. It's in everybody's best interest to do that. Renting an ADU, alt ADU, could be help you pay for your fire expenses. Fire insurance is going up, and you might need the extra income. It's very important. Because of the potential danger of having RVs, trailers, and tiny homes on the road, it should be prohibited to move a trailer or RV during a fire evacuation order or emergency, even a warning. Housing is health care. It costs us a lot of money to support people out in the woods and on the streets. There's plenty of proof that getting people inside improves their health, improves their mental health, and lowers our costs as taxpayers. I know a lot of people worry about septic and water management. All hookups, like tiny homes, must have a code equivalent septic and water management system because of the cost of instituting septic. We need either a 3-year delay to give people time to build up the money to build that or institute code equivalent solutions that might be approved by the state, may have to be approved by the state. An important thing is that your property rights end at your property line. No one's going to make you put a trailer or an RV on your property, but you don't have the right to tell your neighbor what she can do on her property. And finally, the regulations must not be so restrictive and expensive that nobody can afford them. overly stringent regulations would be nothing more than housing on paper, which means nothing, be a waste of taxpayer money and staff time. And with that, I'd like to close and thank you all. And I'm looking forward to a productive, civil, respectful conversation. Thanks so much.
Hello, my name is Nancy Ramsey, and I work for Freed Independent Living Center. The saying, "no place to go," is not just a cute slogan, it's the truth. Our community people who live without a home are not allowed to stay in town. They're not allowed to live in their car, if they happen to have one. They're not allowed to camp. They're not supposed to stay in a travel trailer or an RV with permission on someone's personal property. There's a massive shortage of affordable housing and Section 8 vouchers. They cannot afford a tiny home. Of the many people without a home whom I have worked with for just short of 5 years now at Freed, not one has been an active addict. 3 were clean and sober for over 10 years. None of these consumers that I have worked with were brand new to our community. They either grew up here or they've been here for a very long time. Our folks who are not housed are not going to disappear. As a community, we need to work together to help support them. Thank you for your consideration and providing a space for a discussion here today.
Hey there, I'm Lesie West. I moved back to Nevada County in 2018, and I'm an NU graduate, so I've been quite local. But I unfortunately, I'm very sympathetic to more housing is needed here in Nevada County and throughout California. However, I dealt with an unfortunate circumstance in 2021, and just to what your friend said is your rights end at your property line. A gentleman moved his trailer in right up against the fence, and this was a 1960s trailer, parked in the bushes on top of pine needles, and ran a small generator all day for power. He was a smoker, so I heard him, day and night, and I live on 4 acres. So does my neighbor that had this trailer on their property to accompany their aging parent. So I'm glad to hear that safety is something of consideration for this ordinance, because that's my biggest concern, is I'm paying fire insurance, I'm paying property taxes. I don't know who this gentleman is, who he is, and, children of the neighborhood. Hopefully we know who these people are that might be living in the RVs and how that's impactful to local schools or children living nearby. And then also just the maintenance of the waste systems, the generator exhaust, the overpowered circuitry, if they're being plugged in to a power source, the extension cords from the generator to the unit, gravel underpinnings, just to make sure that these are fire-safe dwellings is my hugest concern, because my neighborhood definitely works hard to make sure that we're a fire-safe community. So I really appreciate you guys' time today, and I think for some alternatives, we have trailer parks that are modular homes, but we don't have maybe enough trailer parks where these can be overseen by safety standards, local police, and emergency response in our aging community that want to take advantage of RV living, and costs. Also, I'm just concerned about the environmental and fire impacts. So thank you for today.
Yeah, hello, I'm Paul Emory, and I'll start off just with telling you a story that happened to me. About 3 years ago, I gave permission for a friend of mine who lived in a motorhome who had to move because the owner of the property he had it on before passed away and the property was for sale. I went and checked with all my neighbors on my street and asked them, their opinion, would they have a problem with it? All of them said no, and there was 9 people. And they all said no, it would not be a problem. They would welcome him living there because we had to help people find places to live. So he pulled it in and was there for a good 7 or 8 months, and everybody was happy and there was no problems and no complaints. But a person who lived not even on my street, but down the street, around the corner, turned him in. And the bottom line is he had to move. And so what he did was he moved to another place where he was illegally parked as well. Hopefully one that he'll be able to stay for a longer period of time. But that's inherently wrong. And I started doing just some checking with my neighborhood and other neighborhoods right around the area. And there were just dozens and dozens of people living in various types of illegal situations. Garages, attics, basements, yurts, motorhomes, teepees, all sorts of different things. And if all those people were suddenly forced to move out, there would be thousands of people, thousands of people in the streets of Nevada County with no place to live. And when the county figures out the numbers of homeless people, and this is a question that I will ask more directly because I want to know, are those people counted as homeless people, or are they just kind of ignored? But in reality, they are homeless people because they're just one complaint from a neighbor away from having to move. And so I think the first thing we need to do is to have some sort of amnesty for people that are living illegally, and then go through a program of evaluating each individual place as far as its safety and health is concerned, and work on getting them comfortable and stable, and the neighborhood also being happy. And that's what I think we need to concentrate on. We need to know that number. How many people in Nevada County are living in various illegal structures? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brad Pimeimer. I've been a resident of this county kind of off and on since 1983, full-time since 2000. I've personally been responsible for homing almost 300 families in RVs, trailer parks, doing a variety of activities during the last 9 years. And I know what these people go through. I know what I personally do in order to place one of these families in a trailer on a property. I do the normal things that any engineer would require. First thing is I require that anything that comes out of that trailer has got to go into a septic system, plain and simple. The electrical service has to be a current-based electrical panel with a minimum of 30 amp service that is hardwired to the location of the trailer. The other things are they have to have access in and out of the property. It has to be clean access. I'm not going to place something in somebody's driveway, that you can barely get a Volkswagen Bug through, let alone a fire truck. It has to be responsible. There also has to be adequate water for doing this. And when I talk about adequate water, I'm not talking about somebody who has a 300-gallon water tank that they're pumping out of. They have to have a well with an adequate service. And I take a look at what their well is listed, as that's given to me by the state. I can pull open that information fairly quickly. The people that I deal with, I got a phone call last night from an 80-year-old couple. They've been living in a place. They're both on SSI. They have virtually no money in the bank, and suddenly, they're being asked to relocate, which will happen to all of us at one time of our lives. But what do I tell these people? I mean, I could sit down and say, well, it's the Christian thing for me to do is order to do this, but it's not that. It's the right thing for me to do. It's the right thing for all of us to do, is to take care of each other. I also go and I talk to neighbors before I place a trailer. I go in and I check in with them, and I also give them my phone number. If they have a problem with something that I've placed, I ask them to call me first. I'll go over and I'll resolve the issue. Probably 95% of the time, we just sit down and we talk. The issue's resolved. Everybody walks away with being a happy camper. And, if there are other issues that I can't resolve, then what I'll do is I'll look about relocating these people. Finding trailer spaces in this county is like finding leprechauns. It is literally that tough. I mean, I've done a really good job at placing a lot of trailers, but I've also zapped out the vast majority of available trailer spaces. And you can't sit down and say to somebody, well, we're going to wait for a trailer park to get built, as one of our supervisors knows what kind of timeline required to do that kind of work. I mean, you're talking a 4 to 5 year program to put in a trailer park. This is something we need to resolve now, not 4 to 5 years down the road. Thank you.
For the record, my name is Gordon Gossage of Regenesis Planet. I arrived in Nevada County just on April 7th to collaborate with our 100,000 neighbors to design Spirit Well Ranch, a regenerative, transformational, and creative community of 750 acres, 61 homes, 61 ADUs, and approximately 240 residents. If this passes, we will do our best to have less expensive housing even than an ADU. Our community will be designed through the lens of deliberative democracy, guided by the principles championed by Beth Simone Novik of the Governance Lab at Northeastern University. And ideally, Spirit Well Ranch will be a component of a broader community-led response to the housing crisis, impacting most of our neighbors in Nevada County. A statistically representative sample of about 500 residents, please contact me if you're interested, will be invited to study our housing challenges in depth, deliberate thoughtfully, and produce solutions reflecting the collective intelligence and shared values of our community. Spirit Well Ranch will be mixed income, intergenerational, diverse in housing types, including the housing types we're talking about tonight. Potential neighbors will be selected with input from trusted influencers within 6 affinity groups and will live interwoven throughout the community, not divided by background, but sharing a unity of purpose. Prospective neighbors will self-identify with 1 or more affinity groups by rating their agreement on a scale from 0 to 10 with the following statements. We should do more to preserve the values of our Western heritage. I support the introduction of new values not typically held by our neighbors born in Nevada County before 1990. I'm listed in the 1950 federal census for Nevada County, or I'm descended from someone who is. I'm a follower of Jesus. I describe myself as a Latino or Hispanic. I'm an enrolled member of a federally or state-recognized tribe or identify as indigenous with ancestors who lived within current U.S. borders before the arrival of white settlers. I'm an educator in Nevada County, serving pre-K through 12th grade. Let's ask ourselves, if our country's future can't be created here, where will it be? If not us, then who? Let's unify as one community to co-create our own future.
Mo Graber, District 1. I'm in the Tahoe National Forest Area Hazard Zone. Across all county reports, that particular zone has the highest risk for wildfire. Over the last few years, Nevada County has had to prioritize wildfire preparedness and risk reduction plans and activities. This was the natural outcome of lessons learned from the 2018 Camp Fire, 2021 Dixie and River fires, 2023 Maui fire, and the very recent 2025 Los Angeles County fires. This resulted in the CWPP, the Local Hazard Mitigation Plan, the Wildfire Risk Assessment Plan, and the Evacuation Study. Wildfire risk reduction gained traction with residents when homeowners insurance carriers began to non-renew policies, and the FAIR Plan, the insurer of last resort, offered minimal coverage at a significantly higher cost. The Board of Supervisors is keenly aware of the need to reduce wildfire risk to contribute to the stabilization of homeowners insurance market, as one of its own members has successfully led the California State Association of Counties Insurance Working Group. Adding motor and recreational vehicles into densely forested, high and very high wildfire risk zones to serve as accessory dwelling units conflicts with wildfire risk reduction practices. It also bypasses updated safety standards, ensuring that new residential units meet home hardening and defensible space requirements. Adding additional people into densely forested, high and very high wildfire risk zones who conduct cooking and other basic life activities outdoors increases wildfire ignition risk. Adding these units to our insufficient evacuation routes that cannot support currently projected residential evacuation traffic flow is negligent and poses great harm. Adding these units to densely forested, high and very high wildfire zones that don't have access to fire hydrants is negligent and poses great harm. Nevada County boasts the highest number of fire-wise communities in the nation. As volunteers, we work tirelessly to reduce wildfire risk. We look to Nevada County to support us with policies and ordinances that align with common sense wildfire risk reduction practices. To support an ordinance that increases wildfire risk and its associated harms undermines the efforts of our fire-wise communities. Motor and recreational vehicles living is best placed in low to moderate wildfire hazard zones with appropriate infrastructure, access to services, and nearby evacuation access to freeways. Thank you for the opportunity.
Good evening. My name is Rona Seabbrook. I'm a 48-year resident of Nevada County. When I first moved here, there were many, many people who moved who were part of the back to the land movement, you might call it, the living off the grid. They moved here for a number of reasons. During that era of the 70s and 80s, many were very well educated, comfortably moneyed. They moved up to build alternative homes. These were everything from yurts to tent cabins to what was called then K-class housing, trailers, RVs, you name it. There are many influential people in the community now who grew up in this type of home, and they have dwellings like this still on their property. So I think this is, it's always been here. There are thousands of people in our community who are living like this. I don't know if they're called off the grid anymore, but I guess the new word is alternative housing. And it's a complex situation, I know that. It's very complex. But I think that our county has the wherewithal, has the expertise, has the brain power to solve this. This is another situation that's come up in our county like every other situation that the Board of Supervisors addresses. And I think with clear thinking and planning that this is workable. And I would encourage the county to not go into fear mode of the woulda, coulda, shoulda, this, that. I mean, that's real, but to stay focused and finding a solution for everyone. There are so many people now who are marginal. They can barely find an apartment. They can't afford it. And this would give them a place to go. I know that, so many people have these dwellings, that there could be some plan with the existing ones, and start with that, and then move into, where that wants to go. So I just think it's the right thing. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Steve Crandall. I'm a local business owner. First of all, I'd like to say that I don't think anyone wanted their life to start off and to end up in an RV on a piece of property. I don't think that's any of our life goals. Okay, I think that's what happens as a consequence of our society and the cost of living today. I personally have tried to put a piece of something on my property for about the past 4 years, and each time the cost comes out to about $300,000. Even if you want one of those small little tiny wheeled homes, those things went up as soon as somebody said they were loud. And so everything becomes expensive. And I just want to point this out as we look at the realistic aspect of this. $300,000 may not seem like a lot of money, but today's market at 7% interest and the cost of fire insurance would put that mortgage at about $3,000 a month. Now you might say, that's not that much. But at the same time, when we have to retire at maybe a Social Security of about maybe $3,000, we start looking ahead and we start saying to ourselves, what's going to be financially available for me? Because as someone pointed out, you can move into a mobile home park, but a mobile home park, the rents go up every month. Right now it's $1,500 a month just to rent a space in a mobile home park. That doesn't include the cost of that mobile home. So that's still around $2,500. Nobody can afford in the future to sustain this. If we want to try to believe that we can actually live in a society where we don't have to work to death, how many people here over the age of 70 still work because they have to afford where they live today? And I think that's what we're looking at, is not the concept that someone wants to live in an RV, but I think that's the concept of where can we go? What can we do to try to make our living affordable? My grandfather once taught me something very, very young to me, and he said to me, son, your rent or your mortgage should be 1/3 of your paycheck. And that's something that we've always lived by. For the past 60 years, that's something we've all lived by. That when we look at how much finances we have, how much we can afford, we say to ourselves, 1/3 of that is going to be our rent. But nowadays, banks are lending you at half of your salary. Why do they do that? Why do people allow themselves to become house broke, poor, where you can't even sustain a living anymore? And I would hope that this new ordinance will allow people some alternatives that would be a little bit more cost effective, that they can manage their finances better. Because ultimately, we can't run our finances, our personal finances, like our country runs our finances. And unfortunately, I believe that that's what we're trying to do today, is we're trying to find a way to live. That's all we're trying to do, is find a way to live. And it might be in an RV, but by God, it's our property and our RV. And I'd like to have that. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Lee French. I'm from Alta Sierra, and I've talked to a lot of people about the problem, and we're wondering how we're going to meet the homeless situation. The grand jury has just released a request for the board to take another look at this and see how we can do this. And one of those things is a managed encampment, much like they have in Auburn, which seems to be working quite well. There was another place, I forget where it was. But this brings about things, how big, what are you going to permit in there, how to police it, the facilities that you have to provide for the homeless, and what are the qualifications to get in there. Nevada County, if we have trailers and cars and RVs permitted on private properties, it's going to impact a lot of things. It'll take more people to facilitate this. There's going to be more cars, more people. Even with an RV, a lot of times, if affordable, most people will have a car with it. The that brings us down to if we have a fire and we're trying to get out of this place without being parboiled, the highway will be jammed with those trailers and extra cars and so on. There's going to be increased services by the county. And you got to think about that, what do they do with their trash? Is there going to be a central trash? Is there going to be showers? Is there going to be rules and regulations, and how are they enforced and what are the impacts? How does this affect our tourism? If we suddenly have a community that is filled with trailers and RVs and cars with people living in them, how's that going to affect tourism? We've got to increase the compliance staff, and we never think, I don't think that far as to how to do that. We lose our rural beauty, security, and our home values will shrink. Forget about schools, roads, within the communities. I see I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Hello, Interim Supervisor Director and audience. Thank you for hearing me. My name is Errol Gorski. I first moved to Nevada County in 2014. Just last year, I was finally able to purchase a property here, but the path that led me to this point was far from conventional. I began here in a tent on a cannabis farm. From there, I moved to the Santa Cruz Mountains, where I built a tiny house and launched a reclaimed wood business. Over the years, I have lived in a van, a car, a house truck, and even spent time in a homeless shelter. I lived in my truck home for 8 years, saving every dollar I could until I could afford land here in Nevada County. During those 8 years, I lived under scrutiny from Santa Clara County while residing in an intentional community. We lived peacefully on the land, used composting toilets, managed gray water systems, and ran successful, still surviving businesses. We paid taxes, planted dozens of trees, and grew a half acre of vegetables. It was a dream made possible by choosing to live in safe, alternative homes on wheels, and we did a ton of research, made mistakes, and corrected our systems as we went. What made it all possible was the support of a landlord who believed in us and shielded us from being forced out. Without the support of our landlord, I don't know where I'd be today. Not everyone has that kind of protection or privilege, which is why this ordinance is so crucial. We must recognize that living in something with walls, a trailer, bus, container, or any of the things we've seen here, is a serious and dignified step up from sleeping in a car, tent, or on the street. These are valid homes. We need to create a gradient of housing stability, real options for people moving through difficult circumstances. I understand concerns about property values, but we must prioritize people. Rising tides raise all ships. Most of our county is rural. We've been deeply impacted by the cannabis crash, and many people are living illegally already simply because there are no affordable alternatives. Homelessness is functionally illegal, and that is morally untenable. We can change this. Legalizing homes on wheels is an essential first step. Let people live how they need to, especially on their own land. It's not radical, it's humane. I will reiterate the importance of education. Education is absolutely necessary towards ensuring the needs of our community, such as fire hardening, electrical safety, septic, and compost safety. These are all met. And I request, as a part of this ordinance, the county requires basic education of the people who are living in these homes towards making their alternative housing safe. And I'll also submit, let's go further, legalize alternative housing in general, including shipping container homes, other converted vehicles, small spaces, and legitimize dry composting toilets, and eliminate density codes for rural areas with obvious safety requirements. These are safe, affordable, and sustainable solutions that we desperately need. And I'll say again, rising tides raise all ships. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Dave Hman. I'm 72 years old. I live on my property in Penn Valley. I've been there for 23 years now. One of my neighbors recently turned me into the county because he's afraid of me starting a fire with my generator. I've been on a generator on this property and my last property for 30 years without any incident. My neighbor goes and turns his light switch on. Well, he gets his power from PG&E. PG&E can't say that they've never had a problem. I'm 72 years old, disabled. The county has been come out, and I have no idea what my future, what lies in my future. I can't afford to move anyplace else. And I'm asking for some help. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Teresa Lyon-Clark, and I'm here to support a proposed local ordinance allowing alternative housing such as RVs, trailers, yurts, and other off-grid homes that meet minimum health and safety standards. As we all know, there's a housing crisis going on not only in our community, but all over the country. Those of us who have lived in Nevada County for 25 to 30 years or more have seen the housing prices skyrocket in the past few years. At the present time, we have many people, someone mentioned probably thousands, living in trailers or RVs right now, and the code enforcement is complaint-driven, meaning that most of them live in fear, as the last person who spoke, of one of them being turned in by either a neighbor or someone else for whatever reason. So basically, we have a problem that we are ignoring instead of solving. And it's not going to get better, and it's not going to go away. Allowing such alternative situations is the most sensible, doable, least expensive, and humane solution. The county can help residents come into compliance and improve health and safety measures. And I agree with one of the people before me that mentioned education being very important. It makes no sense to force members of our community out of their only home when they have no resources to relocate. RVs and trailers are the only affordable housing that does not require government subsidies, in other words, our taxpayer dollars. And another benefit is that the property owners would be able to rent RVs or trailers to others in need or rent space for those with hookups for those that have their own, providing more income for local property owners to help pay fire insurance. We must do everything we can as responsible citizens to get people off the streets, out of the woods where fire danger is very high. We all have a responsibility as citizens to do the right thing. Whether we are talking about behaving towards each other as Christian faith tells us, or talking about the Constitution and its assertion that we all have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Making sure that everyone has a safe place to live is our duty and most noble goal. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Kent Gallagher. Until recently, I was a commercial property owner here. I've lived on my land for 28 years. I'm on 5 acres. My neighbors are on 3 to 5 acre parcels. We have to have compliance with health and safety codes. But beyond that, I think what I wanted to add to this was simply because noise would be a problem for me. On my property, I would propose that there be setbacks from property lines for RVs, especially since RVs are not insulated like homes are. I would expect there'd be a grievance process in case things weren't working out very well for the neighbors. And I would also think there should be density requirements for a number of RVs dependent on the size of parcels, both probably the landowner's parcel and the neighbor's parcel too. So that's all I want to add. Thank you.
My name's James Beal. I'm a property owner here in lower Nevada County in the Ranchette area. Well, mine's going to be quite different than everybody else's. I have somebody that ended up buying a piece of property that has 10 acres, and they're only using probably maybe an acre of it, and all their stuff is parked right on my property line, and I get to see it, and I'm more worried about septic, water, because, I mean, most everybody, if a handyman or somebody that knows how to do a septic, they can go in and get barrels and make their own septic tank and do it that way. What's going to stop the county from going in and inspecting these homes from putting their own stuff in? I mean, I have pictures of my neighbor where he's just planted everything across right on the property line. And I think of my property value has gone down because everything's right there in my line of sight. And it just infuriates me because my property value has gone down. And if he continues to end up proceeding with everything else, what am I going to end up dealing with? His septic coming onto my place? I mean, it just, like I said, it infuriates me because I understand that everybody needs homes, but somebody can go out and buy a piece of property and stick a trailer on it and be, okay, I'm done. I can do whatever I want. And the county can't go on the property because they're not allowed to. So what's going to end up happening? Thank you.
Hi. Ooh, sorry. I'm loud anyways. So my name is Christine Norwood, and I work for the hospital here. I'm a social worker. I do substance use navigation and harm reduction too. I'm a homeowner in Alta Sierra. Can you? No? God, I can super hear me. But so recently, I had a neighbor just as I'm driving in, and I'm at Alta Sierra North, and I was like, oh my God, they have a tiny home in there. It's dark green, and it's super cute. It's all the things, and I was like, I want to have that, right? So I looked at a lot of the regs, and there's some differences between the rural stuff, to my understanding, with RVs and trailers, especially with the work that I do with people in the community. And so the tiny homes would be totally outfitted. They would not be pulled out during a fire. They have to be there, but for insurance purposes, they're called an RV, so you can cover it, right? So anyways, personally, very excited because I could have a rental on my property, possibly. And then the other thing is I work with so many people who have all these amazing stories of where did they get to in their life. And an RV for sure was not the plan, right? And I know people have talked in the past about like, oh, feeding the bears and stuff, but so many people grew up here, were raised here, their grandma was here, they worked here. Things kind of really tanked also with the cannabis. I think somebody mentioned 2014, but 2008 was super rough. And so I've seen as a lot of people time out, they're seniors, they worked hard, and they just need a place to live. So it's not like I'm saying that I feel it's unethical, which of course I do, but it's just so easily done with regulations, you know? Housing first literally impacts everything, right? So you're looking at Alaska, which this is my second stint in Grass Valley because I loved it so much. I first came in 1998. But housing first. People party less, they are less ill, they cost taxpayers way less money. Currently, I mean, just everything, the work that I do, people are so worried of getting stuff ticketed and impounded because they don't have an income to get it back out, which then compounds our houseless population. And so it's just hard. But I mean, other communities have done it and people are already here. So why can't we? So thank you for listening to me. And I hope to get an ADU on my property.
My name is Denny. I live in Grass Valley. And last week, I went on the Airbnb website and found out there are 450 Airbnbs in Grass Valley and 450, a little bit more, Airbnbs in Nevada City. That may be why recently, primarily during COVID, in our neighborhood, which is walkable into downtown Grass Valley, there were 5 separate mobile units in which people were living, and it was awesome. I felt like we were welcoming people into our community who could not have been there, except they had some homes on wheels. There were no problems. Most of them have moved on. There's still a few there. I was very happy the city turned its back on, if there were anybody reporting them, I never saw it. I never heard about it. And so I really enjoyed hearing a couple of the folks who say this is very doable. This is for establishing the ordinances that will calm the fears, I think, of many of the people who have legitimate concerns, but that's what ordinances are for. I would encourage the county and hopefully the cities to look into some creative alternatives like composting toilets and gray water systems. There are things out there that can compensate and keep the costs down for people who are in mobile units, because that's my main concern, is that the county doesn't establish ordinances that are so costly, nobody will be able to afford to comply with them. So thank you.
Hi, Daniel Zitman. I am a tourist today, but I've been coming here for 15 plus years. I've rented Airbnbs because that's where you can find a place to stay when you come up to visit. I have been working with a realtor to try to find a piece of property. And I've been looking in 3 counties. This is the only county that allows accessory dwelling units as a primary residence. And it's very important to me to look at that because in the last 125 days or so, 40% of my entire retirement savings was gutted. And I think a lot of you might relate to that. Last 125 days. I don't need to explain how or why that happened, but the point being is having a successful job, and I'm on year 2 of unemployment because I have a gray beard and I get ghosted by folks that are interviewing me because they're under 30 years old and they don't understand experience. But the point is I'm ready to retire. I want to live in a community that is as amazing as this county is, and I want to live in a place that I can afford. And that means with the sale of my home in San Francisco, I need to buy something and build it for under $150 and live off of Social Security. So if you guys do the math, numbers are important. I'm a data guy. 1,000 homes coming into this area will generate $250 million, enough money to deal with all the new programs about education that were spoke about enforcement, increase the tax base, but more importantly, lower the price of your groceries, lower the price of living here, increase the value. But again, $600,000 is the median price of a home here. You look at any listing on Redfin or any of the other sites and you realize the conditions of these homes are worse than ADUs and worse than RVs. So I want to wrap up that thought that this is a data point that should be considered, that if you bring wealth in by bringing in housing that is affordable, this community will outstrike any other community in the entire state of California. You guys are doing some amazing work. I fully support this idea, and I want to be able to come here as a future resident and be able to work through the system of building a home that I wanted to do and live in a place and retire in a place that is such a wonderful place. So thank you.
Hi, guys. Evan Arredell, Grass Valley. Non-subsidized affordable residency. We all live on property that contributes to the city and county tax revenue in the form of property tax. We all live on property that contributes to the city and the county in the form of tax revenue. If we take that entire amount of revenue and we divide it by all of us, 102,000 of us, we would see that each of us indirectly contribute approximately $35 to $80 a month. However, if I put an RV in my backyard, it does not increase the property value and therefore no more revenue. But I did add one more citizen to our community that will be using our resources that our taxpayers, our tax dollars pay for. So here's a thought. What if we create a department that collects a non-traditional residency fee of, say, $35 to $80 a month, so that now we are all contributing to the resources? So let's address quality of life. The reason we all moved up here. Well, first, we're not going to let an RV in my backyard be seen by my neighbor or anyone on the street. We're going to use view block material that falls in line with the environment, 10 to 30 feet off the property line, that follows all existing codes. Now the public and my neighbor will not see the structure and the people that live on my property. This new revenue strain will then, well, it'll be able to justify the permitting costs, the inspection, the labor for maintaining wildfire risk. But most importantly, monitoring and maintaining the impact that our non-traditional residents have on our community and our environment based on all of these permits and codes that we will be implementing. If someone wants to live in our community in a tent, a car, or RV, if their presence doesn't impact the quality of our life or our environment, who are we to judge? As long as we create a system where everyone can contribute the same to maintain the quality of services provided in this incredibly beautiful region of the country, well, I think this is an approach that provides non-subsidized affordable living in a way that we can all agree on. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else that wants to speak? So I had a suggestion, since we do have the staff here that are going to be putting together the ordinance, that if anybody has a question that you'd like the staff to address right now, that you could come up and ask a question. Lee?
I read in the paper that the grand jury has issued something, some guidance or some questions about the homeless, and I'd like to know what's being done about it. I think in the paper it said that the managed encampments was an alternative. So I'd like to have you address that just a little bit for me and see where we're going with that.
And we'll make sure the questions are regarding the ordinance. So you be the evaluator of that, Tyler.
I'll defer to the Board of Supervisors related to the homeless approach and encampments. We're talking about the potential for having or allowing for alternative housing on private property is what's in front of us today.
So the suggestion that I heard was to question specifically regarding the ordinance, and although that falls into your perspective of it, that's not something the staff can comment on right now.
Okay, it does.
Thank you, Lee.
It does impact the ordinance, so that's why I'm questioning it. If there's provisions to be looked at for that type of conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
I've heard it mentioned a few times about yurts and tents being covered in the new ordinance. First of all, is that true? And second, are there any jurisdictions near here in California that do have an ordinance that allows yurts and tents? Thank you.
I'm not aware of yurts and tents being considered as a part of this particular ordinance. We're looking more at the recreational vehicle definition. I believe the city of Oakland has a vehicle residential unit ordinance, but I don't think it allows for tents and yurts and things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Paul Plattner, Grass Valley. I think we can solve this problem. I think it's, I've read or understand that it takes about 10 years to get a low-cost housing unit constructed at about $500,000, $600,000 done by the state or county. And I was wondering if there's a way to put that into a fund, and then those who could want to put an RV or something on their property could apply for some of that money to make it so it's safe and legal.
Thank you, Paul.
My name is Steve Crandall again. My question is more about, as you go forward with the ordinance, one of the problems that we've heard is that they look trashy, or that this is what I've talked to my fellow people around me and about the housing and RVs looking bad, or the properties looking bad. I would just like to have that in the ordinance that they allow some type of like sheds or something to make the property look better. So that, like right now, you own a piece of property, you're not allowed to have a shed on it, you're not allowed to have anything on it unless you have a house on it, which kind of like defeats the purpose. If we're trying to keep our property looking nice, it would be nice to have places to store things so that ultimately the property maintains its value and maintains its look. So I just want to make a comment that right now, I would like to see some type of ordinance that allows for some type of sheds or anything like that to keep things.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. And again, a question regarding the ordinance.
My name is Celia Hughley. I live in Chicago Park. And my question is, what is the plan for the years in the future as these trailers possibly deteriorate? It's so different than when we build a house or even some of these nice tiny homes that are pretty much permanent structures. They don't get re-inspected. The septics don't get re-inspected or checked, and we all know we have neighbor problems because of that. There's no follow-through in the years to come. Does the county have a plan for re-inspection, or is this going to be an independent sort of a department that's for temporary housing?
Those are all great questions. I don't know what the answers will be.
That
We're
seems
looking
like
into
a
that.
critical part to make it work is follow-up. Thank you.
It's a good comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could we re-display the slide, please?
Oh, sure. And there's also some little yellow slips with Tyler's email, or you could sign up to get information. Either way, there's 3 different ways. Tom.
Tom Durkin, No Place to Go project. I'd like to ask environmental health, what code equivalent solutions are there to septic and what would have to go to the state to be approved?
Well, that's a great question, Tom.
Amy, could you speak into the, I could give you this.
I can, okay.
Thank
Wow.
you.
It's one of the perks of sitting up here, I guess. It's a great question. These are, right now, what we are.
Excuse me, ma'am, can you repeat the question, please? I couldn't hear it. I don't know if other people.
So Tom is asking what are alternatives or what septic systems would be approved by the state, if there were any alternatives. Right now, we have a system in place that if you put in an ADU, you can connect to the existing property septic system as long as the dispersal field can handle that additional flow. Right now, with also, like say a temporary RV, if you're building a home on the property, there's 3 alternatives you can use. One, you can have a service company come out and pump the tank of the RV, which their capacity isn't very big, so that would be frequent. Number 2 is that you drive the RV off the property and you take it to a dump station to clear it out. But number 3 would be potentially hooking that up to the existing septic system. There's a caveat to that. You cannot have any chemical. Usually they use a deodorizer in RVs, and you cannot have that chemical if you are hooked up to the septic system, because that also has other chemicals like formaldehydes and other things that would impact the environment and potentially impact the septic system or the biofilm or the bio agents in the leach field. As far as alternatives, I haven't really gotten into the details of that. And if there were suggestions, it would require an update to our current local area management plan, to answer your question, Tom. And we would also need concurrence from the Regional Water Board, who also approves our LAMP, which we then would, with that concurrence, would bring to our Board of Supervisors for their final approval to amend it with any changes. So anything altering from what we've just talked about would definitely have to have Water Board concurrence and agreement that would be suitable.
Thanks, Amy.
I came here in 2019, and I went to the department to determine costs of developing, and I learned from one of the advisors that it was about $20,000 to put in a septic field, fees and permitting. And years later, about a year ago, he called me and said, "Bevan, do you remember we talked about the 20,000? Well, we assess the actual resources that are used to do this, and it's a perk test, it's a second inspection, final inspection, and it came to about $750. So get back to me if you'd like to develop a leach field with $3,000 worth of parts and about a $750 permit." Is that the case still? Did that happen?
It's a great question. I will say that depending, the totality of a septic permit it can be very expensive. It depends on, when you're talking about the lower end, you're really talking about a gravity-fed system, meaning a system that completely uses gravity for dispersal. Your cost will move up incrementally if you're using an engineered system, meaning you have a pump that then pumps and disperses intermittently into the
Not what I'm
leach
talking
field.
about, it was gravity.
But the permit cost, yes, there is a permit fee cost that we have, but which will run you close to, it's around $600-700. I don't know the fee. Okay, that's the permit fee.
That's awesome.
But then you're working with a consultant. We don't do the actual inspection, so you'd hire a separate consultant that would come out and do your perk and mantle to determine.
Absolutely awesome. We're creating a new industry of independent leach field who can compete with each other, and now we can put leach fields on our property to deal with the environmental impact of black and gray water from RVs. And your comment, I spent 20 years dealing with RV parks and dealing with the sewer systems, aerobic, anaerobic, the whole 9 yards, and I'm looking forward to us setting new precedents for the rest of the country as to how we're going to manage this new situation. And this will deal with, looks like he left the room, when you're concerned about the current situation and things happening with the neighbors that we can't see.
Thank you, Evan. We'll open it up to any more questions. Oh, Bevan, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm really curious if the county is willing to go through a survey to determine exactly or approximately how many people are living in illegal housings of various kinds within the county. Unless we know that, we have no idea what the extent of the problem is. And if something could be done for those people to have a temporary permit so they don't have to worry about a neighbor that lives around the corner and down the block not liking the way their place looks, turning them in, and they're gone. So that's my question is, will the county be willing to undertake and gather that information about how many people actually live in illegal housings?
Thank you, Paul, and I'm not sure which staff member can answer that at this point. I don't know that there's anybody who can answer that tonight, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions about the ordinance? If you could come up here so we can all hear you, thank you. We'll wait for you to get here.
Hi, my name's Rick Carrillo, and my
Okay, let's
only-
get you up to the mic.
Yeah,
Okay, Rick.
My only question is the density, is that addressed in the ordinance, or I haven't seen any info?
It's something we'll be looking into. We don't have a draft ordinance. to
No
review
draft
yet.
ordinance yet?
No,
Okay.
that's part of the process, is we're gaining public input to help inform the ordinances.
Any rough guidelines, like if I own 10 acres, can I throw 10 trailers out there?
Right now, you cannot.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Tyler, do you have any last words?
I don't. Just send your comments in. We're looking and collecting them, and staff will be working on developing an ordinance, and that'll be the next milestone, is the release of a draft ordinance where we can answer more specific questions with it.
What's the timeline of draft?
I don't want to guarantee anything, but we're looking at maybe towards the beginning of July, hopefully.
And we want to just thank you all so much for coming out. And again, I know I talked to many of you that this is the first time that you have come to a public meeting like this to let your voices and thoughts be known. And so thank you so much. This is step one, very important to collect your perspectives. So thank you very much. And possibly some of our supervisors might be hanging out if you want to chat. But thank you very much for being here tonight.